Hi, guys, this is Dr. Scott, and today we're going to get into the bankruptcy of America. And by the way, guys, if you do me a favor, if you just go on to the channel, be able to go on and like and subscribe. Hey, man, if you have questions about it, go to drscottyoung.com. You can find the different place here. But really, man, it makes a big difference for me because there's a lot of stuff that's happening on in the background with all the social media companies. So if you'd pop in there and just do that for me, it would make a big difference. Okay. All right. So let's bring up this. It won't be a long one here, but when most people talk about the bankruptcy of America, they're telling you in a fear-based thing. And I'm going to show you how it's actually a great thing but in a unique way. We have to make a change. Now, in sign language, you actually can put your fingers together like this. Sorry, put it on the, let me put it up the screen. You put your fingers together like this. These are called X's. This is what you would say for an X. You put them, your palms together when your fingers are together, and you just do this. You just flip one side to the other. It's called change. And it depends on which type of sign language you utilize. You might say switch, change, whatever. What happens in change, it actually means a juxtaposition. And what most people think about bankruptcy is that it's a bad thing because when it's happened to you or you've sat on the edge of bankruptcy, which boy, I sat on the edge of business bankruptcy, foreclosure, business foreclosure. I mean, just count the number of things, and I sat on it for literally 3 years, at least. And other times when I could have done it even longer than that time frame. I should have been thinking about it even back in '06, but maybe so '06 all the way to 2012. And when you feel that way, what happens is it really messes your brain up. And so what I'm going to tell you is we're going to have a bankruptcy of America, but it's actually going to be a good thing because you got to switch from one system to another. It's got to be seamless, and it's going to happen to them. Let me tell you a little bit about what's happening in the background here. Number one, always go to drscottyoung.com. I just had a guy, Daquan's really kind of cool guy. I'm going to be on Daquan's channel, Daquan's channel here in a little while. But he just asked me, he's like, do you have a support account? I'm like, no, that's not me. He goes, dang, just another one. So listen, don't buy the silly QFS crypto. There is no such thing as that. You don't have to set up your QFS account. It's already set up in the bank in the background here. In the very near future, I'm going to have, and I mean very near, I'm going to put on the drscottyoung.com a unique thing called the QFS definitions so that you understand what it's about. Okay. And that might help a lot of people to understand what's going on here. Okay, so let's show you some things that I think are weird. Now, normally debt has been out there. Now, we've had debt for a very long time. I remember, excuse me, a lot of these conferences love to go to Vegas because they got these deals, for audiology. And I remember going to Vegas during like this basic time frame here, right? Oops, I clicked the button wrong. Let me go backward. Okay, so right around here time frame. And by one of the hotels that we used to stay at a lot of the time, there was this big sign about the U.S. debt, and it was basically a U.S. debt clock. And it's like, this is how much debt we're under. Now, I don't know if it's still there, but it's fascinating. We're talking about, 15, 20 trillion dollars of debt at this time frame, right? It goes up a little bit. The debt was happening a little bit before in Trump's era. So that is something that's interesting there. It takes a dive in the cost, and we're talking about the cost of the debt. And people are asked this question. Actually, I was talking to Steve with Elijah Streams. He goes, yeah, but why is it going down in the cost of debt? Couple things that occurred there. I'm going to pull that off the screen. But let me tell you what was happening. You have the COVID stuff along with the CARES 2 Act of the PPP loans. Now, the CARES 2 Act brings along a lot of crazy spending. This is when most of us believe that the NASARA kind of thing was sort of coming online. What it did is it pulled the Fed, shoved them underneath the Treasury, and then the idiots had no access to funds. So they had to do it out in front of your face. And that's when we saw, and I mean, it's taken me a while to kind of figure this out because I remember writing a letter to like all the congressmen and senators at the time and going, why are you passing this cruddy bill? And it wasn't just that one, but there were several bills after, right? And you're like, what are you doing? Well, they had to tell you the stupid that they've been up to. And they've been doing this ever since 2020, telling you all the stuff that they're spending on. And the Ukraine war is the same kind of stuff. It's just a way of money laundering in that way. So what also occurs there is that they came off of Basel III compliance. See, from here to even before this time frame, Basel III compliance is a banking system that says if you have let's just say this is a B over here. If you had a $1 billion bank, you must have at least 10% of funds on hand. If you're trying, if you can loan out 900 million, but you can't loan out that 100 million left over. So you got to keep 10% on hand. Well, they killed that regulation in this basic time frame around here. That's when people were buying trucks and cars at unbelievable rates. And I mean, really, really low rates. This is also when we believe some of the arms were actually done again. Those are adjustable rate mortgage points where they would give that person a very low rate and then it would go up over time. And this is the sickness that happened back in 2008, 2009 that actually started right here and the debt spike goes up. But see, the debt issues, the cost of the debt, this is the interest didn't change, but it goes down here because the percentage went down. But look from 22 on, it goes into skyrocketing numbers. It's over $1 trillion that you have to spend every single year. So this is the annualized point, just to pay for the interest of the debt. You're like, wait a second. If the debt is going up in principle by 1 trillion every 100 days, and yet it costs you 1.15 just to have the debt on there. And I'm just the interest of the debt, and the interest payments are going up because the Fed keeps raising that rate. And then I don't care if they drop it or not, it's too high because it's trying to curb inflation. This is an unpayable number. I'll show you something else. Oops, sorry. Bring over this other side. There's a record number of monies that are sitting with the US debt that are full on unpayable. What happens here is this. They have this matured debt. What happens on this matured debt is that you have something that's coming up due. The company, let's say you have a $100 million company and you have $10 million of annualized debt. And then when the payment comes due, you've got to like write a check for that 10 million bucks, right? But it depends on, I don't care how big your company is. If you don't have cash on hand, what you do is you throw that on your balance sheet. And so there's no money to be able to do this. There's no cash flow to be able to accomplish that. Look at the numbers ever since, now it's been going in ugly levels. This is what's happening since 2008, the financial crisis, and it went and stayed there. It never got fixed for some people. And it's just gone up and up. And then 2020, it spikes because now people weren't spending any money on their debt, meaning companies weren't spending any money on debt. They got it in balance a little bit here, but so that big spike happens and then it spiked up again. These are unpayable numbers. It's never been like this before. Those who don't believe in Nasara, I ask you this question: how do you accomplish that particular thing for all the companies? It's a railroading point that they can never, ever do. Show you another thing. the Federal Reserve and a quarterly operating statement. So this is from 2020, and we're talking about they're making money. Normally, this should be a net zero number, right around this like zero line, and normally just squiggly lines right around there. But somehow they were making money in these time frames. It's because what they were is taking the money out and utilizing on themselves. And this is what happens, right? And you know, this should never be in the blue over here, and literally it should never be in the red. I mean, every quarter they're losing 16, 24, 28 billion dollars. You can't afford these kinds of negative things, and that's the monetary system. That's like everything that we have to rely on. How do you fix that? If you don't believe in this art, tell me how you fix that issue. Guys, it's coming in a good way. Because Judy Shelton actually wrote a book here, Good as Gold. You got to go read the book. It's a great book. It's not that long. And she only brought it out in October 24. Like, she had that thing written. Now, she updated a few things, but she had that thing written in 23. How do I know that? Because there's actually a YouTube channel that was talking about it, had a big picture of her, her book in the background. It's a big banner out there. And she's talking about the book. So why did it show up right before the election? It's a planned demolition of these idiots here. Okay? All right. This is one of the more fascinating ones. So I'm going to pull me off the screen a little bit because I want you to see the full screen layout. Okay? So just to see, so you know I can, if I'm coming through here, right? So in the full screen layout, I want you to see this. HHS is $2.8 trillion that they do in their budget every single calendar year at 23% of the budget. And look at this, $2.2 trillion is spent with Treasury. This never happened before. 18%. DOD, which is your defense spending, has been 16%. That's a very normal number, right? Social Security has gone up a dramatic amount to 13%. And look at these other ones here. Now, I want you to think about this for a second. RFK, before the election, comes on and says, Trump asked me to take over FDA, CDC, and NIH, I think it was. If I'm getting this wrong. And he's talking about closing them. And then suddenly, he's the HHS director. Health and Human Services. And I was sitting there going, I've never heard of HHS taking anywhere near this amount of money in the budget. What is that? Well, that's the insurance payments and all the spending money for, guess what? The illegals. Dude, do you understand how much it's cost America? This is how much they wanted to spend to mess with our ELECTION. I'm already getting deleted so many different ways, so I'm just going to have to say that, right? This is how much they wanted to spend to make you go in their direction toward Democrat ideas. Is that not scary? Okay. This is what is going to happen. He is going to be taking this one down to the nub. Maybe it won't exist at all. I don't know exactly. But you know what? You can take many of these, put them in one division, cut them down to like 20% of the staff, and they would run efficiently, right? What a concept, right? And why is Treasury getting so much money? Do you know that the average number, they have like 23,000 employees, and I'm dredging it up here. I'm looking over here because I'm trying to dredge it up, but it's like $217,000 that they average. Most government workers are making, six figures, which is scary, ridiculous, right? And yet, how come Treasury is making on average 217? Oh, excuse me. I'm sorry. The Fed is 23,000 employees, and they're making an average of 217,000. But like, what's going on here? The amount of money that we're spending over here with that too. So that's the FDIC kind of stuff. That's some of the stuff they're spending just for this. These are bank failure points that they've been spending on. Okay. Here's a point of debt. I'm going to try to bring this up here on the screen. And look at America. We're 34% of all of the debt in the world utilized. Look how much of a slice we have. Japan used to lead this thing. China was high on this number. India's pretty significant. But I don't even see Russia. I'm looking. I can't remember where Russia is over here. Somewhere over here. And it's a tiny number. Now, BRICS nations obviously has China in there too, but Russia, we pretty darn know, has been in a level of golding off their currency. Now look at Canada. Even Canada, excuse me, as tiny of a nation, is 2% of all the world's debt. That is why Trudeau is getting just hammered on this kind of stuff, right? Now, there's two different types of bankruptcies, and I believe what we're going to see. And first off, I have to explain to you what the bankruptcies are. Okay, the first level is called Chapter 11. That's called reorganization, because most people believe bankruptcy means closure. No, it has a couple different levels of it. Now, Chapter 11 is reorganization. What it does when you do this, if a company of a larger size, small businesses can't do this. And this isn't personal people. These are business kind of structures, right? It releases most of the debt through a fiduciary, or some other person gets the writes the checks. That's how it works, okay? Because the company was so bad at doing it, you don't get to do it anymore, right? That's what it in essence says. Because what they do is they set up trustees. Guess what happens? They lop the snot off of all of the big old people that were stuck in there. This is what happens when you do a reorganization. A reorg is a crazy cool thing. It's a good thing for that company. Now, this is a company that would be, if you did a reorg, this is a needed company that covers so many customers that are going, we can't function without this. Now, it doesn't mean that they stay in reorganization. Sometimes they close after a time frame, and sometimes they kind of exit out of that strategy with that too. Now, most companies, they don't lose all their debts. They have most of their debts are there, but when they find fraud, you do release that to the people that are affected, those indebted points. But Executive Order 13818 says, hey, we're blocking the property of you idiots because you have done this. What this is telling you is a type of bankruptcy. Now, I'll explain that in here in a second, in a sec, but let me show you what closure means. Closure is Chapter 7. The business doesn't receive any debt discharge in essence. They don't get away from it. They're going to take every dollar that business has. Okay. They're going to pay off the creditors as much as possible. Now, the creditors can sue up to get higher up on the list and more, the more affected that they are. And that's not even a really great process either, but that's one of the things that happens. But one of the things I want you to realize is that the companies that will fail in this, because of the sickness that they've been doing, whether they're in this level of closure or reorganization, what happens when you find out how sick they really are, how disgusting they really are, how satanic they are? That's why some people get mad at me and call them idiots. I'm like, what do you want me to call Satanists? I mean, like, tell me another name that isn't cussing up a storm. I don't know it, right? So don't get mad at me. This is just saying, by the way, Jesus said he called the Pharisees whitewashed tombs. That is literally a big old nasty insult to them. You brood of vipers. That's a pretty close one with that kind of thing too. I believe these two different types of bankruptcy is coming for them and not for you. Now, I was asked the other day, like, well, wait, if that happens, what will happen to the employees that are in there? Yeah, they're going to be people that are going to get affected. But listen, if a company isn't working, Is it working effectively? You do have to do some changes. It's not gonna be like all rose petals here. It's gonna be some difficulty that comes with that. I mean, we've been living years and years and years in the past. Before 1913, we had a backed currency. And then they introduced the Fed, and they had the ability to have a backed currency, but then they flipped it to a fiat. And then, we use this as an example. Zimbabwe's currency is $50 trillion. This is just a picture of a 50 trillion, right? Do you know that in Bolivia, when they have the bolivar, the bolivar is like put up on the walls. Excuse me, if it's Venezuela. The bolivar is put up on the walls. Excuse me, and I said that wrong. Sorry, Bolivar, Venezuela. It's like they use it as wallpaper, their currency. And if you saw it, it's a beautiful currency, but it is worthless to the people at that time. That's why they're printing it, and they got inflation at an ungodly level. We're so dang close, guys. We're right at the end where we're going to have a backed currency. It's going to look different. I'm not showing you a perfect picture. I'm just telling you, we're going to be in this space. We're right here. We're right on the edge. And I'm telling you this much here, as we remove that from the screen. Don't get worried about this stuff. Trump's told you about the IRS. It's happening. He's told you about the the systems that are dying. And we have to flip over from the old to the new. And it'll be dramatic for you and I in a good way. But for them, it's not going to be good at all. And that's why they're freaking out. They're coming. So if you like what we're doing here, would you please subscribe? Would you please like it? Would share it with your friends? It would help me out. Thanks so much.